Good evening. Welcome to the August 7th, 2023 Cabarrus County Board of Education work session. I'd like to recognize our board members, Mr. Sam Treadaway, Ms. Keisha Sandage, our Deputy Superintendent, John LeGrand, our Vice Chair, Rob Walter, board members, Laura Lindsay, Pam Escobar, our Board Attorney, Mr. Gil Middlebrooks, and our Board Clerk, Christy Williams. I'll move to 1.01 and we'll call this meeting to order. We'll move to 2.0 if you will stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move to 3.01 where we will adopt the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I need a second. I have a motion by Ms. Lindsay, a second by, Mr. Treadaway. Is there any discussion about the agenda, board members? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda for the August 7th work session as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda for this meeting is approved. We will move to 4.01, Board Chair comments. Board members, this meeting is an important one not only for the Board of Education, but for the school system and the entire school community that we serve. As we start the process to replace the vacant board seat for our former colleague, Tim Furr, I want you to know that I often hear from those in our community how well this board is working together to do what's in the best interest of the kids of Cabarrus County Schools. To me, this speaks highly of each of you and to your commitment to the 35,000 plus students that we serve together. We will now move to 4.02 with superintendent comments and Mr. John LeGrand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Last week, our district leaders, administrators, and school staff gathered over at J.M. Robinson High School to kick off our school year with the second annual RISE conference. I'd like to give a special thanks to all that took part in for the planning and preparing this conference. More than 3,000 employees were on hand and able to gather and celebrate the beginning of an opening of another school year. It speaks volumes that we have the internal talent here in our district to be able to pull something like that off. And I'm proud to say that RISE was a tremendous success again this school year. RISE stands for Reflect, Ignite, Serve, and Engage. The theme for this year's conference was Onward, and there was incredible professional development given by our Cabarrus County School staff. And it was our teachers teaching teachers, which was really cool to see, as well as many great performances by our talented student groups from all around the district. As you can see in this short video that I wanted to show you here in just a second, the event was worthwhile and demonstrates the energy of our educators as we get ready for this 23-24 school year. So that just gives you a small glimpse of the excitement and fun and I guess just the inspiration in the air. I saw so many hugs and smiles and catching up with colleagues from all across our district. I mean, it was just really great to see as we all get ready for this school year that's about to open on Thursday. In other news, the job fair. The Cabarrus County Schools Human Resource Department will host a job fair next Monday, August the 14th, and that'll be for bus drivers, school nutrition staff, Kids Plus staff, and custodial staff. It will take place from 10:30 to 1:30 at the Transportation School Nutrition offices located at 111 Union Cemetery Road, Southwest, and that's in Concord. For information, please contact our Human Resources Department at 704-260-5741 or visit our district website at www.cabarrus.k12.nc.us and click employment, the employment link on the home page. As I just mentioned, school will start on Thursday. We'd like to take a moment and wish much success to our traditional calendar and early college students and staff members as we open the doors to the 23-24 school year on Thursday morning. This year, Cabarrus County Schools will welcome more than 35,000 students to our growing district. Please reach out to your school or visit our school websites for any last-minute news and information on the upcoming school year. And finally, I'd like to welcome Mr. Phil Penn, our new Chief Financial Officer, who is with us here tonight. He started with us last week and is in attendance at his first board meeting, and we're excited to have him on our cabinet and in our Cabarrus County family. So thank you and welcome, Mr. Penn.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we'll move to 4.03 with attorney comments. Mr. Middlebrooks, do you have anything to share with the board?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. The General Assembly was supposed to meet today to undertake veto override votes on 4 significant bills: the Charter School Omnibus Bill, the Charter School Review Board Bill, the bill that's called Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and the Parents' Bill of Rights. But they pushed that back, and those votes now will not happen until Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So no news yet on the veto overrides. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, we'll move to 5.01. This is our process to fill our board vacancy. So this will be the nomination of the slate of candidates. I want to remind everyone of our process since Mr. Furr's resignation on July the 17th. At that meeting, the board agreed that we would publicize the vacancy and receive applications through Monday, July the 24th. We received a good number of expressions of interest from members of the public willing to serve. I want to express my personal appreciation and that of every board member to each applicant. It takes a lot of courage to put oneself out front and center to go into public service. We thank everyone for his or her interest. Since the 24th, board members have had the opportunity to review the submissions of these applicants. I'll now move that the board adopt a slate of 5 nominees to fill the remaining time in Mr. Furr's term. The 5 candidates are in alphabetical order: Carolyn Carpenter, Brian Floyd, Melanie Freeman, Makura Kusha, and Greg Mills. I need a second to my motion that these 5 candidates be nominated.
Second.
I have a motion by the chair and a second by Mr. Treadaway. Is there any discussion, board members?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to clarify it's Namrata Katru.
Okay.
Is the pronunciation. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of adopting the slate of nominees say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By a vote of 6-0, these 5 candidates have now been nominated. We will now move to the public comments on the board vacancy. It is now time for public comment. This public comment session is not our regular monthly public comment time. Instead, it is being called for a limited purpose, which is to discuss the current vacancy on the Board of Education. Therefore, all comments must be on that subject. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak, and an individual speaking for a group may be allowed up to 5 minutes at the discretion of the board chair to express interest and concerns related to the official business of the board and school district. The speakers will be called in the order in which we receive the request. A person may or not be substituted for a speaker, nor may one speaker donate time to another speaker. If a speaker runs out of time, then the speaker may leave the additional information with the board clerk. Statements reasonably perceived as disruptive or intimately threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. Any limitation on public comment shall be viewpoint neutral. The board chair has the authority to rule the speaker out of order. If a speaker or attendee willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts this meeting and refuses to leave after being asked by the board chair, then the speaker will be escorted out and could be arrested for trespassing or disrupting an official meeting. Board members will not respond to individuals who address the board except to request clarification of points made by the presenter. So we have our first speaker is Wendy McConnell. Welcome.
Did I do it right? Awesome. Hello. When do I start? I've already started. Okay. Thank you for letting me speak. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Kapicki. Oh, sorry. Kapicki's not here. Sorry. And to everyone, actually. We deeply appreciate your commitment to the critically important work of educating all of our children in the county. And we'd like to address you all tonight as you consider this open seat on the board. Only a few weeks ago, a board member here tonight publicly posted on social media a performance, an homage of a song that encourages vigilantism violence directed at people who stand for justice. Disturbing as it was to see this, tonight we'll address everyone involved in our county's education, open seat candidates, and all school official leaders to lift up the critical responsibility you all have to understand the legacy in this nation that continues to produce deep economic and social division across race. A broad yet brief review of this legacy reminds us that freedom has never been free in our nation. We killed and displaced indigenous peoples. We owned humans. That's how we got started. We exploited the labor of every group and pitted those groups against one another. How did we do it? We gave poor white people guns and said, you control brown and black bodies. And hopefully that'll be enough to keep you from turning around and seeing who's exploiting you too. When we declared ourselves a free nation while committing genocidal war and 20% of our population was in absolute bondage, while poor white farmers held up the racial arrangement with their guns, they never turned around to see who was profiting most. And freedom wasn't free. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but came with a caveat: convict leasing and 100 years of Jim Crow, lynchings, angry white mobs, still controlling brown and black bodies. And freedom wasn't free. Freedom wasn't free when entire Japanese families were imprisoned and Latino and Filipinos stood up for foreign laborers' human rights. When black students sat in drugstore counters and adults have refused to ride buses. When black children tried to enter public schools. What did our white faces look like in those photos from that time? Where were we holding hands together, or were we holding guns then too? Ridiculing, threatening, violence, angry white mobs. Do we turn around and see who profited most? Civil rights legislation is finally enacted, and we even elected a black president. Is our work done? Folks, the whiplash of backlash is swift, sweeping up brown and black bodies into jails, prisons. I'm speaking for a group, catalyzing change. Jails and prisons, disparate outcomes across every single system. White people by far are having better outcomes than any other group due to this legacy. And outcomes for people of color are at public crisis levels in the wealthiest nation on the planet. We are not free. When the response to protests for justice is ridicule, minimization, criminalization, militarization, and calls for white militias and vigilantism ring out, we have to understand this legacy, folks. This pattern of power. Pitting us against each other is profitable. Because freedom is not free, and our history isn't even history. Freedom requires something from us. We each must stand up for it and insist on it. Vote for it. Vote for leaders who will make it their business to understand this racial legacy. Appoint open seats to people that understand this legacy and how to change it together. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ellen Ivers. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, members of the board. Oh. Okay. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Ellen Ivers, and I have 2 children in Cabarrus County Schools. I'm speaking tonight in preparation for your vote on a new school board member. As you prepare your vote tonight, I encourage all of you to take a look at who the district needs to represent every student, every teacher, and every staff member. While I am sure that most of the candidates we hear from tonight believe they are the best for Cabarrus County, I ask you to consider my questions while thinking about your ratings. Does the candidate have the best interest of every student at heart? Is the candidate a member of or supported by a national hate group like Moms for Liberty that is looking to take quality and diverse topics out of public education? Because that is not acceptable. Does the candidate have an understanding of our diverse and growing district? Does the candidate truly support public education and denounce the new state vouchers that will take away funding from our schools? Is the candidate willing to fight for state funding to keep our schools strong and funded for the future? Does the candidate believe in a challenging and comprehensive education that will bring our kids success well into the 21st century, even if some of those topics are hard to digest? Does this candidate have a plan to make schools safer? Does this candidate support the education of the whole child, including classroom learning, mental health education, and exceptional children's services? These are some of the items that I would like you to consider tonight. Our county does not need a political candidate that is trying to get their toes wet for the next election. We do not need a board member who is supported by a hate group. We need someone who is going to represent everyone, work as a team member, and not just advocate for the ideals that they deem worthy. Thank you for considering my questions during your readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, we will move to 5.03 for our nominee speeches. I will call the nominees in alphabetical order to the podium, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Our first is Carolyn Carpenter. Welcome.
All right. Good evening. I am Carolyn Carpenter, and I'm applying for the position of Cabarrus County School Board member. Most of you I have worked with in the past. I have served as a school board member for 16 years and a county commissioner for 12 years. Since I've left the board, I have been working in the schools as a substitute teacher, and boy, has it enlightened me. I feel my record speaks for itself. I know I can hit the ground running and help the school board with the great work they've been doing. I only want to complete the open term, and I'm not interested in running in 2024. I have always been a team player and care about the children and the community. The question was asked, what do you see as the most pressing issue in Cabarrus County Schools, and what can you bring to the table and address these challenges? Very simple. The top priority is going to be the redistricting. This is something we've not done, a big redistricting we've not done. As most of you know, I have been involved in large redistricting plans and small, while I served on the before. I have lived in Cabarrus County for over 45 years, and I have been in all parts of the county, and I have also been in this area all my life, which is over 70 years. So I know the county and the community and the schools, and I have been in every one of the schools in Cabarrus County, so I'm familiar with the children and the schools themselves. I know the children. I know the communities. So I know the teachers. And again, since I've been teaching in the schools, I've actually taught in a lot of these schools, so I'm very, very familiar with that. I better hurry. The second thing is that we need to help our teachers. We've got some great teachers, so we need to give them the tools and the staff they need to be successful with TAs, good salaries, good pay, and we need to keep adding to our CTE programs so we can keep our students. We've got a great system. We want to stay in the top 10. I could go on and on, but I thank you so much for letting me be here tonight, and I hope you will consider me. I have the education, I have the knowledge, and thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Our next candidate is Brian Floyd. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you again. I'm Brian Floyd. I think we all pretty much know each other well. I think we've spent a year campaigning, so I'm not really sure what else there is left to say. I'm not that comfortable talking about myself a lot, which is a big challenge for that. So you guys probably know what you need to know about me by now. The big things for me, I'm a graduate of the school system. I'm a current parent in the school system, and I'm a former classroom teacher and teacher of the year in this school system. And as a current parent, I understand firsthand the challenges that the families in our district are facing. As a former classroom teacher, I understand what it's like to have your boots on the ground and actually be in the game instead of watching. And as it being both has given me the perspective to really bridge a gap between the two that I think is pretty vital right now in particular. As we come out of the pandemic and we have a lot of other things we have to tackle. As a local and a graduate, I understand the history of our great school system that made it so great and made it a great place to grow and for folks to move to. But I also, as a parent of young kids that still have a lot of years left in this system, understand the future growth and how important it is to embrace that and to handle it correctly. I was asked to state what the most pressing issues in Cabarrus County are. I mean, I think it's a pretty obvious answer, redistricting. You're going to hear that probably 5 times tonight, I hope. And that's a major undertaking. Obviously, we've never done anything like that in this county before. It's not simple, and there's no simple way to do it that's going to make everybody happy. And I think probably the most dangerous thing to do is trying to make everybody happy in the process. And so I believe that you need to make sure that you pick somebody that understands that and understands that hard decisions are more important than popular decisions when it comes to doing something that very important in this county. I'm not saying I have the answers, but I do understand the problem with that, and I understand how to accept the unpopular realities that come with it. I also think we have a funding issue in this county. That's pretty obvious to anybody who knows anything about finance and budgeting and funding. I don't think we're getting the support that we need. I think you guys all probably know that, so you don't need me to go on about it. But I think you need to make sure you have somebody that understands that and understands how to fight for it and how to allocate it once we have it and use it properly. We have, issues that we can improve with morale, discipline, mental health. I have a whole list of them I could get into. But I started thinking when I was driving over here today, last few times I've been in here, it's been a pretty big battleground in this room. And the thing that strikes me about that is we all have things that matter to us. And just because something matters to someone else doesn't mean, and it doesn't to me, it doesn't mean it's not important. So understanding that voice and that perspective, even if it's not mine, is something we need to have with everybody. So I've got all the resume bullet points. I think you all know me by now. You're not going to get any drama out of me. I have no plans to run again. And just ask you to look at it like a job you're hiring for who's got experience, perspective, qualifications, potential, and pick that person, even if it's not me. Just make a good, sound decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. Our next candidate is Melanie Freeman. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here tonight. As you have heard, there are definite issues facing our school board this year. The redistricting, of course, will be important, but in view of all those issues, the bottom line that we face is the education of our children. And I've spent all my adult life working with and teaching students of all ages. I ran for school board because I have a passion to see children succeed. The most obvious issue, of course, is the education of our students. That's what we're tasked with overseeing. We now, in America, rank 25th in the world in educational excellence. Coupled with this is the fact that SAT scores are the lowest they've been in 30 years. Regardless of how you interpret statistics, the evidence is obvious that our students are not performing at a competitive level with the rest of the world. Children cannot read and write, they cannot do basic math, they don't know the history of our country, much less the world. If they don't have a solid foundation in these core areas, they cannot build on them in the upper grades. The result is they fall further and further behind each subsequent year. I believe classroom discipline and lack of respect for teachers are big issues. Another is that teachers are not receiving adequate training in the universities to be able to handle classrooms their first year that they're hired. We have lunchroom issues, not just about food, but about safety. One thing I would bring to this position would be compassion that fuels solutions. You must have a heart for students, teachers, and parents alike. Compassion for children who struggle with learning disabilities and may not have ideal home situations. Compassion for teachers who want to do a good job but are hindered because they are overworked and spend an inordinate amount of time on discipline issues instead of teaching. Compassion for parents who want their children to succeed in education and are counting on the schools to do their job. Secondly, I would bring courage and common sense. Courage to honestly analyze information and reports to search out answers. Courage to admit when mistakes have been made and choose a different path. Courage to make hard decisions that will bring a learning environment back to our classrooms. And courage to do the right thing when it may not be popular. Finally, I bring commitment. I am committed to the position and all its time requirements. I'm committed to seeing all students succeed in mind, body, and spirit to the best of their God-given abilities, and I'm committed to bringing a cooperative spirit to work with this board. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. I'd like to ask Namrata Kashru to come up, please. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Today I stand before you as a candidate for school board member, motivated not by the pursuit of a position or title, but by a deep commitment to the future of our school system. I, Namrata Kachru, immigrated from India 25 years ago, driven by the pursuit of higher education and dream of a better life for my family. I'm a mother of 2 children attending Cox Mill Elementary, and Harold Winkler Middle School. With a master's degree in chemistry, I have taught at CMS High School and served as adjunct faculty at CPCC and UNC Charlotte. In 2019, I moved to Cabarrus County for us to be part of a school system that upholds high standards and expectations for all students. I have actively volunteered at my kids' schools emphasizing holistic education and growth for students. As a teacher, I understand that following are the key challenges facing our schools. Number one, growth. Some areas in our county have experienced significant development, but our school capacity hasn't kept up. We must address this problem with well thought out long-term solution, always putting the best interest of our students first. Number two, mental health. While schools are often held accountable for academic performance, we must not overlook the vital role of recess and supervised free time for middle school students. Research shows that children need this opportunity to process emotions and consolidate their learning. Number three is teacher retention. Limited resources for children can impact teacher retention and satisfaction. We must prioritize providing adequate support and resources to our talented educators. Recognizing the pivotal role of educators, I will advocate for competitive compensation, robust professional training, and resources to support our teachers. Last but not the least, parental involvement is crucial, and I will work to bridge the gap between schools and families, encouraging greater participation in their child's education. In conclusion, as a mother, prioritizing my children's growth, education means everything to me. I'm eager to work constructively with all the board members to make positive difference in the lives of our children, an objective that unites us all. I thank you for your service and look forward to the opportunity to serve with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kushru. We'll call up Greg Mills. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Greg Mills. Again, like Brian said, most of you guys know me. We campaigned together for a few months, at least 3 of you. But beyond that, you guys have seen me at every single meeting since then. And you don't see me just at meetings, but you see me at band concerts and sporting events. You see me at community events. You see me at high school talent shows. I've tried to make an effort to be involved at every level of the school system, because I believe that when we see what's happening in the school system, as a school board member, you're better able to address the real issues that are affecting teachers in the classroom. My wife is a teacher in the classroom. That's why it's so important to me that we make sure that they feel like they have a high level of job satisfaction so they can give the best performance out of our students. You guys, I just want to say I'm very grateful for you guys even allowing me to come and speak. I know for a fact you guys put aside some resumes that were much better than mine to allow me to be here. Some people have said to me in this process, Greg, you worked harder than anybody else for this seat. And I want you to know that I appreciate the sentiment, but it wasn't for this seat. I've been to these meetings, but I always sit on this side of the room so the camera can't see me. And this is the first time that I've stood behind this podium, because it's never been about me. It's always been about educating myself and advocating to you guys for the best things for our school system. We've been a lot of talk about being the best school district in the state, even in the country. We want to carry that banner. And I think it's great that we have some outstanding individuals, championship sports teams, and students that get national honors. We need to recognize and celebrate those things. But we can't count ourselves as one of the best districts in the school system, or one of the best districts in the country, if we're not proficient at a high level in reading, math, and science. We've got to take that stuff seriously. And so while there are a lot of issues facing our school systems, there's one that I want to drill into tonight, and that is reading proficiency. The state, North Carolina DPI, released some numbers last week. They said that our students are coming into grades K through 3 behind other states for last year, and they finished ahead of other states, and that's great. In kindergarten, 3 out of 4 kindergartners last year finished with proficient for kindergarten level reading, and that's good. 3 out of 4 isn't bad. It's a good mark to improve from, right? Unfortunately, that's the high mark for the rest of the grades. In first grade, it drops to 71%. In second grade, it drops to 64%. In third grade, it drops to 57%. All right, so that is not a good trend line. If we follow that out into the higher levels, we're going to find out that maybe we have students who are grade levels that are 50% not proficient, not meeting on grade level. This goes to a lot of different things. It goes to our discipline problem, because kids who are struggling to read, they will act out in class so that they don't have their insecurities exposed in front of their peers. And kids who are successful academically will have fewer mental health triggers. I'm out of time. I got one more thing that I want to say. I think that this comes down to one simple question, and putting all politics aside. Do you want to choose somebody for this position who shows up tonight for the seat, or do you want to choose somebody who shows up for the work? I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Okay, board members, we will move to 5.04. This is our approval of the voting process. I'm going to explain this selection process that we have used to select the person who will fill the remaining term of Mr. First's seat on the board. At the end of this, I'd like a motion and a second to adopt this process. Then it will be properly before the board for questions and discussion. We have agreed to a slate of 5 candidates. Each board member by written ballot will vote for the candidates on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest number of points. Consistent with our general voting policy, each board member must vote for each candidate using this process unless excused by the board due to a conflict of interest disclosed before we distribute the written ballots and begin voting. Voting will be by written ballot. There will be only one vote. After we have voted, Deputy Superintendent John LeGrand will check each ballot for compliance and eligibility. A board member will be given the chance to correct any handwriting that is not legible. Only compliant ballots will be counted. The candidate with the highest number of points wins. In the event of a tie, the tie shall be broken in favor of the candidate who receives the most 5s. If a tie still results, the tiebreaker will be broken by the candidate who received the most 4s. This tie-break process will continue in similar fashion until a winner can be declared. So, is there any discussion about the process, board members? So now I need a motion to adopt the voting process as presented. I need a second.
Second.
So I have a motion by Ms. Lindsay and a second by Mr. Treadaway. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The voting process is adopted. We will now move to 5.05, where we will vote on the board vacancy. And Mr. LeGrand will hand out the ballots. So, board members, we will now vote. And once you have completed your vote, Mr. LeGrand will take those ballots. Mr. Legrand, do you have all the ballots?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we will take a short break while the ballots are counted, and then we will come back to declare our winner. Thank you and welcome back. I would like to go ahead and read a statement. After the ballots have been counted by our Deputy Superintendent John LeGrand and monitored by our board attorneys and board clerk, I am pleased to announce that Brian Floyd has been selected to fill the remaining time in Mr. Furr's position. We will have a swearing-in ceremony at the start of our August 14th meeting. So that concludes 5.05. Congratulations, Mr. Floyd. And thank you to everyone else and for the courage to come forward. We really appreciate the time and energy that you took for this. We will move to 6.01, policies for approval on first reading, and have Dr. Sandy Ward to the podium. Welcome.
Thank you. And good evening, everyone. I'm sure reading policy is not as exciting as voting for a board member, but I will do my best. This evening, we are bringing forth 4 policies that are up for review. Board members, I did not receive any questions, so I am going to go into just a little bit about each of the policies. I do have some folks on standby that can speak to some of the questions that you might have with some of these policies. So first off would be 3101, which is dual enrollment. Dual enrollment talks a little bit about our career and college promise partnerships with some of our local community colleges. The edits in this one are strongly recommended. For that, there's also a legal reference that is strongly recommended, and there's also a footnote that is for information only. Any questions on 3101 dual enrollment? All right, our next policy will be 3226/4205, which will be internet safety. This was a district request by Mr. Ben Allred. Does anyone have any questions? I had asked him to come and speak because I know one of our board members
I haven't seen any changes to it, so if you can go over why it's being presented tonight.
Okay.
So in a little bit, I'll be presenting you our E-rate requests for funding this year. One of the requirements for us to receive E-rate funding annually is that we are SIPA compliant. SIPA is the Children's Internet Protection Act, which protects them online. We have to do some things. North Carolina Department of Public Instruction was audited this past year, and a lot of the audited districts came up without one of the key components to say that we meet that audit, and it was the public notice for the board meeting. So this policy was voted into effect back in 2014, and we just could not locate the public notice. In order to fill out the form for us for the state of North Carolina, I have to say link that public notice. So this is a review. It's always good to look at internet protection for children. We have filtering tools in place. We do all of those things available to make our children safe. There are no changes, Rob, to the policy, but we needed to get it on a board meeting to discuss it so that we can remain audit free. So thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thanks, Ben. Mr. Allred, sorry. Next policy is 4023-7233, pregnant and parenting students and employees. A couple of recommended changes. Number 1, to the title and to reflect the new expanded scope of this policy. It adds a new section, Section B, to address the rights of pregnant employees provided by the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and the Pump for Nursing Mothers Act, which was strongly recommended. It also updates the legal and cross-references, which is recommended, and it does add some footnotes. Any questions on that one? Okay. And in your notes, you can see some of the work that has been done. And last but not least, policy 5040, which is news media relations. So that has to do with Mr. Furr here, Phil Furr. It moves information from the third paragraph to the first paragraph, and it adjusts some language. So no, not a lot of movement there. It just talks about and recognizes the district's official spokesperson, which would, for us, would be Mr. Philfer. Some minor editorial changes, and some cross-references. Any questions? All right, that
Okay.
concludes those policies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, does everyone agree to put these policies on the consent agenda for our August 14th business session?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to 6.02, the Cabarrus Health Science Institute MOA with Mr. Gordon Palmer. Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Madam Chair, Board, Deputy Superintendent LeGrand. So we have met with the Cabarrus College of Health Sciences and updated our MOA with them for the Cooperative Innovative High School, better known as the Cabarrus Health Science Institute. This agreement is something that we review and update annually. This year, the state has made it a point to have each LEA require them to have a partnership agreement. And in June, I presented our partnership agreement with Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and this is now our agreement with Cabarrus College of Health Science. The view from the state is that we have a strong, high-quality partnership between secondary and post-secondary educational institutions, and that they are critical to support the policies and practices that expand access to career and post-secondary pathways. The state has set a due date of December 2023 for this to be in place, and we are well ahead of schedule. So the documents that I've shared with you have been vetted by Atrium and the Cabarrus College of Health Sciences Legal Counsel. They have been vetted by our legal counsel, and I've also communicated with President Dr. Cam Cruikshank with the college to make sure that everything is in alignment. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions, board members? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is everyone in agreement to put the MOA on our consent agenda for our August 14th business session? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to 6.03, Mount Pleasant High School naming of facilities request. Good evening.
Good evening, board members. I'm here to introduce you, first of all, to Principal Lacey Jacobs of Mount Pleasant High School and Athletic Director Jody Barbie. I thought I was going to have to pinch hit for Mr. Barbie. He couldn't canoe out of his neighborhood a while ago, but he did make it over here. But this is pursuant to policy 9300 in naming of facilities. And Mount Pleasant High School has submitted a request to name their football stadium field house after legendary longtime coach Mike Johns. Cabarrus County Schools Athletic Department fully supports their submission of this request. I do want Coach Barbie to reiterate some more information about Coach Johns.
Thank you. Thank you, board members, for allowing us to be here tonight and represent Mount Pleasant High School and the community of Mount Pleasant. Coach Mike Johns was a legendary coach. You know, I can go over his 23 years of 148 wins, which makes him the winningest coach in Tiger history. But he also ranks second among Cabarrus County high school coaches. He won 5 conference championships, 2 sectional titles, and had 17 playoff wins. He was also our head track coach, where he amassed 4 conference championships and sent multiple state and regional winners also. But not only this in his illustrious career wins, what meant the most to us was the man that Mike Johns was. He was a Christian, he was a believer, and he touched many lives in our community. He led our FCA program for 23 years, and our kids love him to death. It would mean a lot to us and our community if we were able to do this in honor of Michael Johns.
Any questions, board members?
So if we approve that tonight, would there be a dedication ceremony? You have an idea of when that would happen?
Well, I would love to do it the 18th of this month, which will be our opening night against Carson. It works out really well with his family being in town. He's got 3 sons. One's living in Texas, the other one's playing rugby, professional. So we would like to do a ceremony and unveil the field house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If we voted on this tonight, would it be helpful for you with that timing?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve this application. Coach Johns was a role model for staff and students, and I think this is only appropriate.
I have a motion on the floor to go ahead and vote. I'll second.
Do we have to amend our agenda or not?
Effectively, on the consent versus action, by making that motion, by making that motion, Mr. Troydaway is essentially moving to do this as an amendment to the agenda, so that's within your rules.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Treadaway and a second by Ms. Lindsay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it is approved.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
guys. We'll move to 6.04, approval of E-rate purchase requisitions with Mr. Ben Aldred. Welcome back.
Welcome. I'm glad to be back. All right, my very long one-slide PowerPoint for you tonight. So let me do a quick little bit of education, which I think helps. So I talked about SIPA earlier. We have a policy. In order to receive E-rate funds, we have to follow those policies. E-rate is a pretty complex system, but I want to kind of break it down and distill it into simple components. There's category 1, which gives us our internet. You probably have an internet service at home. You plug a router or your computers into a plug in the wall. Internet comes out of it like a flood. You also have devices that the company that you get internet from gives you, little access points or routers or things at home so you can watch Netflix, etc. Well, we do the same thing, and we get funds from the federal government and from the state of North Carolina. Federal government through the FCC and through the Department of Public Instruction. So these are really fun ones to give you because they don't cost Cabarrus County schools any dollars. So one of our strategic goals in our department is to ensure that the infrastructure in our system is up to date. So you'll see access points on the ceiling. Hopefully you've never been in those closets, but you've been in closets maybe in schools, and they have switches and cables and plugs. So we had a few things that we prioritized for this year. I want to go over them for you real quick, and then I will go into the request that we made for both. So access points, we need to upgrade around 684, I think, of them this year. We have tons of access points. You've heard me talk about the numbers of devices we have. Most schools have between 30 and 90, depending on the size of the school, plus our buildings that are not schools, like this one, have to be updated. Switches have to be upgraded to make sure that the speeds are there. Built into access points and switches are also some of those same protections that we have software for as well. Most of our schools were built at a time when the internet was not as ubiquitous as it is right now. So if you've been into classrooms, you've probably seen an access point laying on top of a file cabinet or a desk or a bookcase. Now that is problematic. That's expensive equipment. It doesn't give great coverage. And over the summer when we wax floors or clean rooms or paint, those get unplugged, put in closets, knocked around. So we want to mount those. So we have 5 schools: Cox Mill Elementary, Crawley Fur, Weddington Hills, Bethel, and Irvin, that will be doing cabling so we can mount those access points in the ceiling, provide good coverage, make that equipment last as long as we can, and increase its security. And then we also have switches and access points to happen at different schools. So let me get into the nuts and bolts of the 2 requests. We have a formal bid process that we have to go through with the state of North Carolina in order to advertise, make these bids. We had 2 companies respond, ANC and CNIC. They're the only 2 companies that responded to either bid based on the bids that came in. One company bid lowest on the cabling and the switches, and one company bid lowest on the access points. So today I'm here to ask for your approval on those 2. So we'll start with the first one, which I think is the one we're on, 6.03. Thank you, Mr. Cook. So the total amount of that bid, which includes the cabling and the, sorry, I'm trying to read and talk to you at the same time, which is never good. Yep, this is our access points and cabling. The total amount was $337,013. The federally funded portion of that is around $202,000. We are a 60% district, which means the federal government covers 60%. We pay the other 40%, which are then reimbursed by the state of North Carolina during this fiscal year, meaning we're $0 on our end. So the total request tonight for your approval on that is $134,935.25. Questions on that one?
Ms. Escobar.
Yes, ma'am.
So to clarify, we're gonna pay this money and then we have the state reimburse us.
Yes.
Do you know how long that takes?
I do not know how long that takes. I can find out for you for next Monday.
That'd be great. Sure. Thanks.
Any other questions? So do you need us to go ahead and put that on the consent before you go to the next?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So everyone in agreement, we'll put that on consent. Okay. We'll go to 6.05.
So 6.05, you'll notice it's a large number. One of the things I wanted to clarify for you about why it's so large, we get around $5 million every 5 years. You've probably noticed with other requests, especially those that have come in related to facilities and construction costs, those have skyrocketed. We try to take advantage of the pricing as low as we can. We can spend that money anytime across that 5 years. We have the capacity to install and use what we get. So we went ahead and put the lion's share of that with our purchase this year. That's why that is such a large ask at a little over $2 million. Same process as 6.04. And the ask there for our CCS portion is $877,000, $867.60.
Any questions, Mr. Walter?
What's the lifespan on these things?
It depends. Switches usually last anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Our access points are 3 to 5 years. Sometimes they go to 6. Cabling should last forever.
So do we have a replacement plan? Is there something that you've developed that says the school this year?
Our replacement plan for this particular type of device, cabling, switches, and access points, is what we use our Category 2 funding for. That funding is renewable every 5 years, and we have a plan to replace as much of the equipment as possible in that 5 to 7, depending on the type of equipment lifespan. We do have to fund some of it locally out of our technology budget, but most of it comes out of the funding from Category 2.
I'd be interested in seeing that at some point.
Sure,
Thanks.
I'll be happy to share that with you.
Any other questions, Ms. Sandage?
So just to clarify, we have to have something. You found the most reasonably priced one that you could. You're asking us for some money, but we're going to get that back at some point.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what I'll do to make it clear is I'll find out what date we got the reimbursement from DPI for last year, which should give us an idea of the timeline for this year.
Okay. Everybody good to put this on consent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will move to
sorry.
6.
Does that give you enough time to do what you need, waiting until next week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll move to 6.06 with Participant Learning Incorporated with Dr. Michael Williams and Mr. Philip Penn. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys? We are bringing to you the Master Services Agreement for Participate Learning. This presentation is divided into 2 agenda items, one from Human Resources and Finance, and a second one from Curriculum and Instruction, because this agreement covers both staff and instructional resources. I'm presenting the information for staffing, and Ms. Reeves will follow me presenting information about instructional resources. The district partners with Participate Learning to staff both our dual language and traditional classrooms. Historically, Cabarrus County Schools has worked through Participate Learning for dual language, world language, and ESL teachers. But more recently, due to the staffing shortage, we've increased the number of Participate teachers in our general classrooms. The staffing side of this agreement is cost neutral to the district, as staffs allocated to the district for teaching positions are used for the Participate Learning costs to cover salary, benefits, and administrative fees. There's essentially a swap of funds that we receive for teachers that are moved over to cover the costs that go to participate for those teachers. At times, the use of Participate Learning teachers can actually provide cost savings to the district depending on the experience level of the teacher that we are bringing in through Participate. I am bringing this to you this year because the cost for this, as we have scaled up our use of Participate, has exceeded the $250,000 limit, and this master services agreement had not been updated since 2013. So we are updating the agreement, and we are bringing that to you for board approval for this agreement. Again, Ms. Reeves will be detailing the portion of the contract that you've received related to curriculum and instructional materials.
Any questions, board members?
So it's been reviewed by the attorneys?
Yes.
Okay, so I was confused when I read it as a 5-year agreement, or is it a 1-year agreement?
I believe it is I will get, but let me find that out for you.
That was a little confusing when you read read through this thing.
5-year agreement, yes.
And then there's automatic renewals if you don't give them a certain period of time.
I believe the notice is in January and it's a 5-year agreement.
Yeah. But then there's other language here that says you can cancel early. So. Is our intent a 1-year agreement, or is our intent the full 5 years? Or
that I'd want to go back and we'll get that for you for next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we wait till next week and make the decision?
Ms. Escobar?
So this is the amount for this year, correct?
This is the amount for this year, yes.
Not
ma'am.
for 5 years.
Not for 5 years.
In 1 year. Yeah.
And then if for some reason, let's say our needs change in the future. So for general education, maybe we're lucky enough that we have U.S. Citizens that want to work here in Cabarrus County. Are we locked in on this amount?
We are not. We are locked in based on the number of staff we anticipate participating through the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to those numbers or that information that Mr. Walters also asked for. Thank you.
Ms. Sandage?
So just want to make clear, you guys have to have this approved or know what you need to do by next week.
We need to come to some conclusion on it next week in order to make sure that we have covered the cost for the teachers who have arrived in the district.
Gotcha. And I don't want to stop any teachers getting on board or anything happening for the start of school. And that doesn't affect this at all, correct?
It does not.
Okay. So I just want to give some suggestions. Can we make sure if we have questions for you all, just so the process does not slow up, that we send those questions in before next week so y'all get what y'all need? Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions? So are we okay to put this on consent?
I'd like to see it on the action item. Action agenda.
Okay. Action agenda. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to 6.07 in the program choice part of this, and we'll have Ms. Sarah Reeves. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. LeGrand, and members of the board. I am here today presenting on behalf of the second portion of the invoice as it relates to Participate, and this specifically is directly related to our program choice support with our dual language schools. This would include our dual language schools at the elementary level, as well as the middle school level, and a large portion of this goes towards teacher recruitment, strategic planning and support, professional development. They also provide us with a lot of curriculum mapping and resources, things that we would not have the capacity to do in-house with just one program, as well as assessment and data analysis. So it's a great connection network to be able to promote global learning and awareness throughout the different programmatic themes we have in the county.
Any questions?
So when it says quantity 1, is that just one teacher?
That is the program itself. So it is capturing the whole program or the whole school, and that's what the quantity is.
So it's not the teacher itself?
No, it is not. No, it is not directly related to the teacher. So one of the things that Participate does provide is they provide holistic services for the entire program at that specific school site.
Okay. But it's part of this other agreement too?
They are tied in together,
Okay,
yes.
Ms. Sandage.
So you can't approve one without the other? Do I understand that correctly? Like you need both pieces to this puzzle?
It is a single contract, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, before we go to convening closed session, Ms. Lindsay has asked for a point of privilege, and I will turn it over to Ms. Lindsay.
Thank you. So I had the opportunity to break bread, have some fellowship and prayer with Dr. Jarvis from the local NAACP. His wife and he are lovely people, and I look forward to working with them in the future to help our community. One of the things that I would like to recommend trying in a small town is not making assumptions about anyone and instead have conversations and collaborations to gain true understanding of people and their intentions. That is how real issues are solved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Board members, I need a motion to convene in closed session to consult with an attorney, preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-038-011A3, and to consider confidential personnel matters pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A6. I need a second. So I have a motion by Ms. Lindsay, a second by Ms. Sandage. All those in favor of convening in closed session say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now in closed session. Thank you to everyone that was in our meeting tonight. Good night.